So today I'm happy to welcome Christian Nikiforuk from the Nikiforuk Professional Corporation. I have known Chris for a number of years and very happy to have him as a member of our expert network. He has had over 30 years in the legal field, so has a lot of knowledge to share with us. And today I just wanted to have an opportunity for our listeners and our viewers to get to know a little bit about Chris and his background. As many of you know, BACD strives to be the go-to business resource for organizations and for budding entrepreneurs in Durham region. We're one of 53 centers across Ontario that are here to serve entrepreneurs. And our mission is that every entrepreneur we work with achieves business success. So part of our expert network membership is for people and businesses like Chris to be available to help you with any questions you might have around legal considerations when you're starting your business. Chris, I'd love you to tell us a little bit more about your career in the legal industry. Where did you get started? And I'd just love to learn more about your journey of 30 years. So
well, thank you. Thank you, Teresa. I'm very happy to be here. I've been, involved with the BACD for over 20 years in different capacities, and I'm really proud of what you're doing, and I'm always happy to be able to help, people who need the help.
Yes, and I will say that, funny enough, you've probably been around the BACD longer than I have.
I actually have. In those early years as a director, as a mentor, and now as a mentor and professional advisor. My career, yeah, I know it's hard to think that it's been spanning 30 years now. I started out as a small town lawyer, and I had a storefront office in Oshawa for a number of years. At that time in my career, I did everything. I did real estate, I did family law, I did estates, I did corporate commercial, anything that kind of walked through the door. I got a very broad-based kind of general background, and then later in my career I decided that I had done enough family law and I really wanted to spend more time in the corporate commercial sector of life, and I made a very concerted effort to go in that direction. I spent a couple of years with Walker Head in their corporate commercial department in Pickering. And then I was fortunate enough to have a company that I had incorporated in the early days of the internet, have need of a part-time and then a full-time general counsel. And I worked there for almost 6 years. And as is the nature of tech companies in Canada, it tends to be very much a boom-bust kind of environment. And in 2008, they went bust.
It's too bad, but that was a tough time, that recession time, right?
It was a very tough time, but I mean, it was a very important part of my career, I guess, in the sense that I had actually incorporated this company in private practice. And then I was lucky and fortunate enough to go work with them as their general counsel when they went from like 1 employee to 75 at one point in time, spearheaded an international expansion into Europe and the United States. And it was a really exciting time. Obviously, the demise was not quite as much fun, but it gave me the opportunity to be part of the full life cycle of a technology company, from startup to finish, in this case.
Yes.
Then I dropped back into private practice for a few years, specializing in corporate commercial work, sort of, gradually transitioning to where I am now, which I'll get to in a couple minutes. But then I had another opportunity to be a general counsel with a company that is now gone as well, Mundo Media Corp, and enjoyed 3 years there as a general counsel. Once again, spearheaded a European expansion, American operations, and like most tech companies, these companies that I worked for, they were situated in Canada. Most of the employees were here, but most of their business was in the United States or elsewhere in the world. So it was a great background, from startup to financing to expansions. Really enjoyed it. A lot of HR work there as general counsel, since most startup companies don't have a budget usually for an early HR department, especially when they have a budget for a general counsel. And then the last 6-7 years, excuse me, I've switched direction, I guess, a little bit. I was a founding member and I'm a current director of Spark Angel Network, which is Durham Region's angel investment club, essentially. And I'm very proud to be associated with that organization. It permits me to mentor and help a lot of different startups, both from an investment perspective, a professional perspective, and just kind of a business consultation perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And in my private practice, I've tended to, gear it more towards technology startup companies and growth companies. And those are my primary clients these days. And it's a really exciting, dynamic place to be. And it's just so amazing for me to see what's happened to Durham Region in the last 5 to 10 years when it comes to the growth of entrepreneurship and technology companies. And you've been at the forefront of that, Teresa, and it's so rewarding to see what's happening now.
There's a lot of growth, and I think there's even more growth to come, which is pretty exciting,
I think it's just getting started.
Very much so. So I'd love to ask you, from all like the service areas that you mentioned, I'd love to tell people a little bit more about what you mean when you say general counsel.
Okay, general counsel is a lawyer who works just for one company.
Okay.
And in a sense becomes an employee of that company, so that whenever that company has any legal needs, instead of calling outside counsel or a firm downtown or in their local area, they use that lawyer.
Right.
The general counsel role I've really enjoyed, and I continue that model to some extent even in my current practice, where I describe myself as a part-time general counsel for a number of different companies, and I'll provide them with 5 to 10 hours, a month of my services at a special fee. Because with being general counsel, you really learn the business, as a business person and not just a professional. And it's my belief that the advice that I can give as a lawyer is always at its best when I know the company that I'm dealing with, that I know their business model, I know their competitors, I know where they fit in the landscape. It's just, kind of a really good place to be. And then, of course, you also see all of the issues that arise in startup and growth companies when you're in-house as well, because you have to deal with all of them. And it gives you an opportunity, then when you're in private practice to, kind of strategically plan what a company needs to do from a legal perspective as it grows.
Right. When you say that I see you mentioned that technology law is one of your areas of service. What do you help people with when it comes to technology law? Like what are the things that people need to consider?
Well, I think for most startups, especially if they're technology related, if they're a software development company, or if they have an app, or they're developing a SaaS type model business, software as a service, whether they're in artificial intelligence or gaming or whatever, it's really important for them to take steps to protect their intellectual property, both from an ownership side, just making sure that people who are working for them as employees or consultants, that those agreements provide that the IP is owned by the company. And then also, while I'm not an IP lawyer per se, in the sense that I don't do patents and those kinds of things, I refer my clients downtown for that kind of work. It's very specialized. Patent lawyers also tend to be engineers as well as lawyers. But I really just assist these companies in putting their ducks in order in terms of what they need to do to protect their IP, and also, to get them ready for their first round of financing, whether it's angels or ultimately a Series A. Just helping them with the best practices. One of the other things that I do extensively for these kind of companies is I draft their very first business contracts, whether they're B2B or B2C. Just getting the templates organized and getting their business processes organized to some extent, and then getting all of the legal provisions that they need in these agreements to protect them.
Right. I have another question for you. You mentioned Series A. So I think for some of our listeners, they might not be aware of what that means, like Series A, B, or C. And perhaps you wouldn't mind explaining since you've got that tech knowledge.
Okay. Well, in terms of the investment kind of spectrum, when a company is first getting started, it will start with money from friends and family. And for a lot of entrepreneurs, that may include maxing out their credit cards even. And then as they get further along and they're more established and they've probably got past a proof of concept and they might actually have some revenue, then the next step would be to go to people like Spark Angels. And angels are essentially just individuals who are prepared to invest in early stage and startup companies. It's a risky space to some extent, but there are a lot of individuals out there who are willing to help, and they're willing to mentor, and they're willing to provide their money. And then the next step after that, a Series A round, would usually involve more money than what angels would be putting in. We might be in the raising $1 million, $2 million. There would usually be a venture capital firm in there as well. And that's usually, what's considered the Series A, in a sense, the first serious raise of outside capital.
Okay. And then from there it grows to B, C, or D, or E, or F, right?
It can, yeah, exactly.
I think I've heard of some company having serious, D or E funding, so.
Yeah, no, it very much happens at companies that are growing and they have big capital requirements, and they either need to ramp up production or services, or they're expanding into new international markets. There's all kinds of reasons why they need the funding.
Right. I'd love to ask you a question just related to, you've been a lawyer for so long. What would you say some significant changes are that have happened in the legal field? Do they impact you as a business owner?
I think the legal field is undergoing a big transition at the moment. I think there is a lot of resistance to the fees, the level of fees that are being charged. I think people are, to some degree, unhappy, I think, with the communications that they get with their lawyers. And then, of course, somewhere down the line, in my view, the whole artificial intelligence area is going to disrupt most professions. Because while I don't believe there's any substitute for experience from a professional, a lot of the tasks that professionals can do is repetitive and can be automated, with AI systems. And that's going to happen. So, I found a lot of times these days I work with my clients with different pricing models. I'll do project pricing, so that they know the full amount of the fees for something that I'm doing for them, as opposed to the hourly model, which I think especially entrepreneurs and startups are upset with, because they just don't know how much it could potentially cost. And then I've also done, depending on the company and whether I believe in them or not, I will take equity for some of the work that I do sometimes. I usually ask also for some fee, because I think it's important that people pay something. Just have a better appreciation of what's happening. But there are all kinds of alternate methods, and I'm always trying to prepare templates for my clients so that it's something that, even though we may use it for one particular transaction or one client, I try and create the document so that it can be used again and again and again.
Yeah, that makes sense for sure. So it makes it easier. I know there's a lot of change going to happen over the next 10 to 15 years, but I'm quite excited to see what that transition is going to be. I don't want to look at AI as saying, oh, it's going to take away a lot of jobs. I think AI is going to take a lot of mundane activities away and hopefully give us an opportunity to work on the things that matter,
Well, time's going to tell, I think, with AI, whether it's going to be a positive or negative influence. But Teresa, I think I agree with you. If the algorithms are set up properly and the analysis is done right, and I think we have to be really careful about not building in, cultural and other kinds of biases and prejudices when we're working with AI. I think it does have the potential to free us up, and I think it's got a potential to equalize playing fields for small business engaging professionals, going forward. They're going to be able to get the same kind of advice and work that they would if they were paying more money going downtown and all this sort of stuff.
Right. I would hope for some, as you mentioned about the inclusivity, and level the playing field. I think that will be important because, the biases need to come out, I think, in a lot of different things. So I'm excited about that. It should be. And what's nice about AI is it's going to be, it's a 1 and a 0, right? It's a yes, it's black and white to some degree.
It is. And but I
it could
think,
be difficult.
I think it should help level the playing field for smaller business, I think, in the same way that the internet did when it came out,
Yes, very true. So from all the entrepreneurs you've worked with, have you seen what makes somebody successful over someone else? What is your opinion on what that is?
I have a very strong opinion on this, and I think it's shared by some and probably not by others. And I mean, obviously, there's some basic characteristics that entrepreneurs need to have, and they need to be hardworking. They need to be possessed in some ways. They need to be driven. But in my experience, the greatest determinant of success is not so much the entrepreneur and not so much the idea. It's just being in the right place at the right time and not being ahead of your time, not being behind the time, but executing the right idea at the right time. And you can actually be not the greatest business person and still become very successful if you've timed it right. And you can be brilliant and just an amazing business person and still fail if the time is not right.
Right. Some of that just there's no control over those things, right?
No, and it's, people sometimes don't want to hear that because they think that work and merit and ideas are all that count. And I mean, they're obviously an important part of the equation. You need to be solving an important problem as an entrepreneur for you to gain acceptance in the marketplace. But you can solve a problem ahead of its time and
not have enough customers.
Yeah. So
I've seen that happen for sure. What activities would you recommend entrepreneurs then invest their time in?
Gosh.
From what you've seen.
I think it's important for entrepreneurs to be humble. I think it's important for them to bring on partners and not do it all by themselves. You were asking me before about success. I think one of the elements of success is to have a partnership in which 2 or 3 people cover off all of the major skill sets that are required in all the major areas. And just for an example, if you're developing a new piece of software, I think, and you're the developer, you need to partner up with someone in sales and marketing. And if you do that, your chances of success are going to be just that much greater.
Very true. I remember one of the first businesses where I learned to be a manager is that they made sure we were cross-trained in every single function in the business. And to the point that every month we had to do that job. We all had to run different desks. And I thought that was really impactful.
I think it is. And I think being a generalist in this age of specialization first is still something that's really important because it permits you to see the big picture.
Right.
And I guess, the other thing with entrepreneurs is just, make sure you have a passion outside of your business and don't neglect your family. It's still more important than your commercial success.
I know, but we get so stuck. We so forget, when you're lying on your deathbed, it's not how much money you made, how much money is in the bank account, or how little money it's really the people who love you, you know? And
Yeah,
so
the people who love you and you're by your side and had your back while you were still alive, right?
that's very
So,
true. I have a question for you. How do you market your business? You know, which tactics have you found successful for you?
for marketing, um, I must confess, I haven't done a lot of traditional marketing. I haven't done a lot of digital marketing. I'm a great believer in word of mouth referral. And I guess I'm fortunate that I've been in business long enough now that, um, you know, I still go out and network. I think it's
I was
very
going to say
important.
that's a huge marketing
Yeah,
tactic.
that is a marketing tactic, but I guess I don't sometimes perceive it as a marketing tactic because I really enjoy meeting new entrepreneurs. I really enjoy seeing how the community is growing. I really just enjoy talking to people and meeting new people. And I don't think of it, you know, as a business expansion exercise or business development exercise. To me, it's something that I do because I enjoy and it's part of my life. And of course, as an angel investor, I'm always looking for, you know, exciting new companies
Right.
to invest in, and it just all kind of goes hand in hand.
So talking about that, you probably get to hear a lot of people's pitches. What makes them stand out to you?
I hear a lot of pitches each year. I do. Um, wow. I think
Probably a
that
big question. It's like asking you to boil the ocean.
that is a really big question, but I mean, I think it's really important to be concise, articulate. It's important to give a frame of reference for the problem that you're solving and how you're solving it, how big the problem is, whether your solution is protectable in the sense that either there's IP or it would be difficult for somebody to become a competitor. And then, you know, I think you have to show that you're organized. I think you have to show that you have passion, because, you know, most investors in the angel community, and I think to some degree in the venture capital community as well, we have an expression that, you know, we bet on the jockey and not the horse. And essentially that means that we look at the management team and we look at whether they've been serial entrepreneurs or what their background is and how committed they are and things like that as almost being more important than the problem that they're solving or the technology that they're developing and all these kinds of things.
Good point. Because sometimes, as you mentioned earlier, it's all about the entrepreneur, right? And what their skills are really going to be like to be in business and
Yep.
whether and they'll be successful regardless of what they get into.
Yes, these individuals will. Exactly. Right.
When you see all the pitches that you've seen, what are you excited about in terms of like what's coming or what's emerging, or just love to know if there's anything you can share.
Anything I can share? Well, there's a couple companies. Can I mention them by name, Teresa? Or
If you're okay with it, you're the lawyer. I'm okay to hear about them, and I will reference them in the show notes if you like.
yeah, I mean, there's a couple companies. There's one very exciting company actually in Durham region that I'm tremendously excited about, and I'm sure that you know them. I've met the founders a couple of times. The name of the company is 3D City Scapes, and they have a technology where essentially, to my mind, they're virtualizing the world. And I see this as an incredibly revolutionary kind of concept and idea. I don't think it's going to be as powerful as the internet, but I think it's going to be pretty profound in terms of how it affects what we do. And they do some, you know, really beautiful work of putting a city or, you know, a particular building, you know, in a sense online using gaming technology where you can walk around, you can fly around it, you can, you know, really get a feel for a city or a place, you know, without being there. And I just think the number of potential business verticals that are going to flow from this are enormous.
Give me some ideas of what you mean. Like, how is this gonna? I'd love to hear more.
Well, I think cities are excited about it because it's going to give them an opportunity to promote their city to the world online, in a sense where somebody can go online and walk down Young Street, you know, and they can turn around and they can see what's in the building. They can see the name of the business. They can, you know, they can see the cars going by. I mean, it's absolutely remarkable. So, I mean, from that standpoint, cities are going to do it. And then, of course, you know, the condo developer who's putting up a new condo on the corner is going to want to use it for marketing purposes. I think the works departments of all cities are going to want to have a virtual city so that their works department knows where the hydro lines are going, where the sewage lines are going, all this kind of stuff. And then you could create a, you know, virtual shopping mall as well, where somebody could walk into a virtual Eden Center and go to whatever store they want and order whatever they want online.
Wow.
I just think, you know, it's endless. And you could, and then for people who are unable to get out, you know, like the elderly or somebody who's living in Europe who always wanted to walk down Young Street, they can do it now. You know, I mean, it's, you know, it's not quite the same as being there, but it's still pretty exciting.
Very somewhat virtual reality, right?
Yeah, yeah. And another company, I guess, that I'm really interested in these days, and just as a disclaimer, I've invested in these guys as well. It's called Tip Tap Pay, started by a gentleman who really saw a need to help out charities in this growing age of, you know, of us living now in essentially a cashless society, where it's getting harder and harder for charities to get those small donations from people. And he's essentially developed, you know, a small device that links in with the, you know, our cellular communication systems, and then you just put a number on it, whether it's $5 or $2 or $1. And then if you're, you know, Girl Guides selling cookies door to door, you know, each Girl Guide can just have one of these buttons that's $5 for to be able to purchase the cookies. And it's just simple, it's convenient. I mean, we're all used to kind of tap technology at this point in time.
Right.
But I think it's just going to empower the charities who've been losing money, you know, year by year as we go cashless. And I think it's also got, you know, other verticals in terms of transit technology and things like that. And it's just really, it's really rewarding, I find, to have a business that's not only going to make money, but it's going to make people's lives better.
Yes.
And, you know, I think we're seeing, or I'm seeing, and I'm sure you're seeing it too, Teresa. I mean, there's been a big growth in kind of this whole concept of social enterprise. And, you know, people are just starting to have a little different focus on, you know, instead of the pure capitalism of just making money, they want to be able to make a difference in people's lives while they're making money. And it's rewarding to be involved in it. It's rewarding to see, and it's just, you know, it's exciting.
Yes, I agree with you. In fact, we're partnering with Durham College. We have Shift Entrepreneurship. We're launching it actually in the Do It in Durham week. So Do It in Durham week is November 18 to 24. We have 50 events in that week. And one of the last events is actually launching the Shift Social Entrepreneurship Center at Durham College. So we'll be working alongside them, because you're right, there is more and more people who care beyond just capitalists. Again.
Yeah, and I think it's really a trend among millennials. I see it in my own children, in their kind of dismissal of materialism and money to some degree.
Yes.
Putting a much greater emphasis on their relationships and their experiences in life.
I see that, yeah.
As opposed to what they own and where it is and all that sort of stuff. It's a really positive trend, I think, in society.
One of the, I mean, this is political to some degree, but one of the things I heard about Canadians was that they really are social capitalists, and that's something that matters a lot, you know, and I think we've certainly bred our youth and our children to be like that, to start thinking broader about the world. So it's what's the word? Inspiring, right?
It is inspiring, and I mean, we're certainly going to need all of this in every every part of our economy and sector to, combat climate change over the next 15, 20 years. So,
Right.
I hope this model gets adopted quickly around the world.
I think it will. So I wanted to thank you for your time today, and I will have your contact information in the show notes as well so that people have access to them. Reach out to Chris. He's easy to talk to. I know quite a few of our clients have had their agreements and documents and everything done with you. And I know that you've done an awesome job with them. So I want to thank you again for your time, Chris, and wish you a good day.
You're welcome. Thank you, Teresa. Keep up the good work at BACD.
Thank you very much.